Welcome to the Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast. I'm Brandon Jaffe. Join us as we explore relationship and mental health issues by weeding out the trends in the mental health industry to uncover what truly works in improving our emotional well-being and relationships. At Inspired Resolutions Counseling, we specialize in providing interventions and resources for families with teens, focusing on topics such as teen mental health, parenting challenges, and family dynamics. I'm going to talk about a subject that comes up often in my sessions. I know I've talked about it in some way, shape, or form in other podcasts, but it's honesty. It's teens and their trustworthiness. I just had a session recently where the teen came in and was very offended that his parents didn't trust him. And there were many layers and realizations and dynamics to this session and to this dynamic in this family, as there often is. But where we started was, I'm so offended because they don't trust me. And the parents' obvious response is, well, we don't trust you because you lie, and you've lied many times. But you know I'm working on it, and I haven't lied in this many days or whatever it was. And after having that back and forth, what happened was the parents began to say, hey, give almost this list or like a verbal contract on here's how to gain back our trust. And that's where I went, okay, let's stop. And when I'm talking about this issue, I teach parents, there is no verbal contract or way for your child to earn your trust back. I don't like that concept. I'm going to earn your trust back. We can make mistakes or get in habits and patterns in our life that change, and then the people around us experience that change. And if it has to do with lying, it may be that we were in a pattern of lying and then we matured or changed or did some work on ourselves, and the people in our lives aren't experiencing that anymore. And then they eventually trust us. And usually that line of going from I don't trust you to I trust you isn't something that you consciously realize is happening. I see that all the time with some of the addiction families with an addict in them that I work with. The addict goes to treatment, comes out, is born again, so to speak, and they still aren't trusted within the household, and they get really frustrated, and we have to process some of these same kind of issues. The whole, I'm offended because you don't trust me, even though I'm not trustworthy, is something a lot of you can relate to, whether you're on one end of it or the other. With these parents, I stopped them. I said, we're not going to talk about how to earn trust back. What we're going to do is we are going to talk about the fact that there are some areas in life, in this case, it had to do with smoking weed, turning in homework, and then a girl. And you parents don't know. We don't know, and we can't trust your child to stay away from this girl, to be sober from weed, and that isn't going away anytime soon. And you don't trust your child to tell you the truth about homework in school and what's going on truly in terms of academics. I said, let's put that on the table. I'm not going to help you guys come up with some master plan for your child to earn your trust back. It's pretty simple. You stop lying for a significant period of time, especially when it's difficult, right? A good show of, man, I'm on the road to trying to be honest, is you make a huge mistake, you come clean, you suffer the consequences. You don't try to minimize or mediate the consequences. You just take it on the chin. But that's a discussion I would have with an individual who's motivated to make a change, to become more honest. And I have people often, both teens and adults, who come into me and say, hey, look, I've been stuck in a pattern of lying for so long that I can't stop. I'm struggling with both little and big things. And a human being who can have that much awareness of themselves and be motivated enough to ask for help is on the right track. And the truth is, for many people, it takes a lot of work, a lot of intentionality, a lot of time to go from being somebody who struggles with honesty to somebody who is honest. And for some people, they think that they're really honest, and they are, because overall they're just not doing things that would bring scrutiny, that people would judge. People lie to protect themselves. They lie to get away from consequences. Some teens lie because you know what? Their parents' reactions to things aren't worth dealing with, and their parents are overreacting and just not pleasant to be around. So in this case that I'm talking about, that wasn't the case. The parents were pretty reasonable. The child had made many mistakes and was kind of going on and on. But the child, instead of focusing on themselves, came into this session just really, man, what am I going to do? I mean, I'm just hopeless. There's nothing I can do. They don't believe me. And then the parents were so focused on the debate and the trying to teach their child how to gain their trust back that they stopped focusing on the things that they actually control. I asked them this. At first I said, well, what aren't they telling the truth about? And so they gave me the list. I asked them, are you setting them up for lying? And I think that's an important question. First, figure out this loved ones in your life, the teen, what are the things that they do tell the truth about? What are the things that they don't tell the truth about? Because saying, I can't trust you with anything probably isn't accurate. There are some people who lie about everything, and that's this almost obsessive addict-type behavior, and that's a pattern that has become something that person doesn't control. But overall, people lie to protect themselves. And so if you are a parent who is constantly causing chaos because your child refuses to do their homework or something else or is making mistakes, and you act in a way that is chaotic to the family, they're going to protect themselves and lie. Now, they'll probably protect themselves anyways. We want to find this balance of I'm going to take responsibility for my reactions. And this is the next question. Are you setting them up for lying? And I asked them that, and they said, no, why would we set them up for lying? Well, and I said specifically to the dad, I said, the last time that you asked your child whether or not he had turned in his homework, whether or not he had done everything he had, quote unquote, promised to do to get his academics on par, were you asking because you didn't know, or were you asking because you wanted him to tell the truth? And you were testing him. And the dad said, well, I mean, when you put it that way, yeah, I knew he hadn't done any of it. We got the report and we had seen whatever it is online that they had seen. And so he said, so I guess I was setting him up. I said, yeah. And when you ask if he's sober and smoking weed, are you really thinking that he stopped smoking weed? Well, no, we know. So I said, so that's setting him up for lying. Yeah, but he shouldn't lie. I get that. Just because your child is unhealthy in that aspect and is not being honest doesn't mean that you set them up to lie. You set boundaries regarding the things that you suspect they might lie about. Again, are you setting them up for lying? Setting somebody up to lie just because you want them to be different, it doesn't help them, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help you solve problems, and it doesn't create a healthier relationship. And then I always ask parents this, what have you actually modeled? For instance, if you're asking questions that you know the answer to, and you're playing some of these games with the discussions you have with your child, you're not really modeling outright honesty. And then what are your own excuses? When I really peel back the layers, a lot of parents will admit that there are things that they weren't completely honest about, but they have really good reasons for not being honest, like calling their child into school when they weren't really sick. You know, parents don't want to say, hey, I'm not willing to answer that question. They'll spin it. A lot of parents don't realize that they might be modeling dishonesty in a justified way, and they don't even realize it. It might be getting a ticket and fighting it when you were actually wrong. It might be some sort of financial loophole for taxes that you find that you've talked about in front of your kid. You know, making untrue excuses to not show up to things, or I don't know. There's a whole score of white lies. But you see, they're white lies to you, but maybe major to somebody else when they're experiencing it. And so that's another thing is society has decided that one lie is worse than another. And I get that some lies are criminal and land you in prison and some don't. But at the end of the day, having various qualities, this lie is white and this lie is major, that's not a healthy modeling or teaching, because then your kids are going to decipher, well, I'm not really doing anything that wrong, even though this is really hurting my parents, okay? Because I don't assess that this is that bad. Then I ask, what is your reaction when you respond to the lies? Do you get really big and angry? Do you have a big debate? Do you play games with your words? Do you keep trying to have a contract and not follow through with boundaries that you set? What is your reaction? Is your reaction benefiting you? Is it benefiting the relationship? Is it helping the issue? Is it solving the problem? Probably not if you're not cool, calm, and collected and moving forward with boundaries. But once you've addressed that there's a pattern of lying about a subject, once you've had the discussion, don't have it over and over and over again. Figure out what your boundaries are. If I don't trust you to tell me the truth about your school, I'm not going to ask you anymore about your school. And some parents listening to this are going to go, well, I'm not going to do that. You have to ask your kids about your school. No, don't ask them about the academics at their school if they are going to lie about it. Just find another way to track, be involved, and hold them accountable through boundary work, through communication with the school. You know, the school's made it pretty easy to check up on your kids. I know it's not perfect, but it's easier than ever when it comes to academics. I don't think a lot of parents' minds goes to, I need to solve a problem because my child is lying about this issue. And again, I'm not saying don't ever have the conversations and the lectures. It's just don't do it over and over and over again, and don't do it with an angry, mean spirit. And if you caught them lying and you tried to change them through lecture and lessons and a good conversation and it didn't work, focus on what you have control over, not on the fact that you can't find the right words right now during this season to change your child's behavior. Remember, we are influencing them in the long run. We are not here to change them right now in this moment as badly as we wish that we could. Now, I'm going to say something that's really important. It is not your responsibility to give them the answer on how to gain back your trust. And so anytime you come up with a contract, or you tell them, hey, you need to tell the truth this many times, or you need to do this, and this, and then I'll trust you again. You're doing the work for them. And that journey, that work should be 100% on their shoulders, not yours. Don't tell them how they can gain your trust back. Make the conversation more like this. Look, I can't trust you in these 3 areas, but I love you. And I am not going to ask you about the school. And from now on, I am going to check your room and your backpack. There's not going to be any privacy in terms of your things, because I want to make sure that the drugs are not in my home. And you keep sneaking out and having inappropriate things that we don't want you to do with your girlfriend. So we can't trust you to take the car, because when we gave you the car, you went off with the girl and got caught being sexual in a way that we're not cool with and we don't want to participate in. So we need you to drive to school. You can drive to school, but the weekends, we're not going to participate by giving you the keys. I'm not telling everybody to set that boundary, but that's an example of a reaction that is cool, calm, collected. It's addressing, solving the problems. It's setting boundaries in a way that is reasonable. It's coherent with what the issues are. And your child might get just as angry back at you as if you yelled at them. But it's important that you model not only to not lie, but how to respond when somebody in your life is lying to you about something. Because your response to that is vital. It is so important in terms of child rearing and helping them become the men and women that you want them to become. When you get frustrated, man, process it with your partner, process it with your therapist or your friend, and don't process that anger with your child. Don't have the conversations over and over and over again. Don't do the contracts. Don't give them some silly series of things to do for specific amounts of time for them to gain your trust back. Just admit, the trust right now is gone. I don't know when it's going to come back. I still love you. We can still have a relationship. Don't bring everything into it. Oh, because you lie about those 3 things, I can't trust you over here, here, and here, even though you've never lied about these subjects. Keep it poignant and solve the issues. Set the boundaries that make sense. Don't make it the focus of the relationship either. Once you set the boundaries and you're following through, you don't need to talk about it all the time. It doesn't have to be a thing. Even if you have to follow through the boundaries, you don't need to keep talking and talking and talking and talking. Solve the issues the best that you can. Let them know, because I can't Trust that you'll tell me the truth in these areas. Here's how I'm going to act accordingly. I love you. Our relationship isn't on the line. I'm not going to take this personally. And it's so interesting how many parents take personally that their children lie. You forget that it might be a stage of life. It might be a season. It's not about you. It's about them. And yes, it is your role to teach them honesty, but it's still their journey. You cannot force them to be honest people. Take a step back. Don't take it personally. Don't ruin the relationship. Set the boundaries accordingly. Follow through consistently and move on with your life so that you can be happy, they can be happy. And interestingly, when you don't take it personally, when you just set the boundaries, when you follow through, when you stay calm, when you don't talk about it all the time, you have a greater influence in their life. You teach a better lesson than nagging every day in the long run. And that is the goal, is influencing them in the long run.
The Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast is an Inspired Resolutions production. Hosted by Brandon Jaffe. Edited and mixed by Natalie Atkinson. Music by Natalie and Sean Atkinson. Inspired Resolutions Counseling is based in Yorba Linda, California. Whether you're interested in joining our group, seeking therapy services, or exploring more of our resources, you can find us on our website, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at Inspired Resolutions Counseling.